Georgia, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, Laura, the UN continues to fight alongside the Democratic Republic of Congo's army in bombarding rebel positions around Goma. Also, we take a look at the difficulties faced by Nigerian refugees forced over the border by insurgent attacks. And residents in Bangui flee violence by ex-rebel fighters by heading to the airport. First up, a UN peacekeeper has been killed during an assault on rebel positions in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo on Wednesday. UN forces operating alongside the Congolese army bombarded M23 insurgents using helicopter gunships and ground troops. Now, it's a ramping up of the UN's engagement in this latest outbreak of fighting in the turbulent region. A South African and 2 Tanzanians in the UN brigade have also reportedly been wounded in clashes just outside of Goma. The Nigerian Secret Service says 2 nationals have been charged with helping an Iranian militant cell plan terror attacks on Israeli targets. Meanwhile, authorities have also ordered the extradition of another man to the US, where he's wanted on al-Qaeda-linked terror charges. Lawal Olaniya Babafemi's admitted he traveled to Yemen before returning to Nigeria with the aim of radicalizing others. Officials are watching for potential terror networks closely as the military continues its crackdown on a jihadist insurgency in the northeast. Over 3,500 people have been killed in Boko Haram attacks over the last 4 years, and many Nigerians have fled over the border to Niger to escape the violence. Well, Nicolas Le Guen's a humanitarian worker with the European Commission's Bureau in Dakar. He tells us more about the flight of Nigerian refugees.
And security in Nigeria has caused cross-border but also internal displacements. So information we have now, we talk about 15,000 people who seek refugees in the neighboring country for the last 4 months. The question is about the internal displacement because we have little information and we have no clear data and figures about the actual figure.
Now, do any of these refugees have any hope of returning home anytime soon?
It's hard to say. What we know is the insecurity is clearly limiting access for humanitarian agency and limiting movement of the population. But for me, the question is about the emergency for hundreds of thousands of Nigerians. Before the state of emergency, we were already expecting 500,000 of severely malnourished children and millions of people to face food shortages. So the question is now how to access these people, how to provide humanitarian assistance, and to restore access to basic services.
So currently, what is the situation in terms of the conditions that these refugees are living in?
The refugees in the neighboring country, they are part in a camp and hosting families. They receive assistance from humanitarian agency. So I think the level is quite okay, and the living conditions are quite good compared to the the IDPs and the population still living in the north of Nigeria.
Tunisia's interior minister says that al-Qaeda has been giving orders to religious hardliners in the country in a bid to destabilize the nation. Lofty Benjedou also alleged on Wednesday that al-Qaeda was behind newly banned Salafist group Ansar al-Sharia. Authorities blamed them for the killing of 2 liberal politicians earlier this year that sparked calls for the Islamist-led government to quit. Benjedou says that Ansar al-Sharia was planning a series of Tunisian political assassinations. The Interior Ministry believes they want to radicalize the country and that there are sinister motivations behind their community work.
Tunisian people are not aware of the angle I was talking about with regard to Ansar al-Sharia. They only know one side of the story, the distribution of aid and meals, the bright side of things. But we know the dark side of this organization, which is involved in the assassination of Shukri Belaid and Mohamed Brahimi.
Now, Central African Republic's new leaders ordered chiefs from his former rebellion to give up areas they've taken control of, and he's stripped them of security responsibilities. It's the furthest that Michel Djokovic has gone in trying to rein in the Seleka insurgents that helped him seize power back in March. Now, Seleka has been accused of terrorizing civilians and carrying out revenge attacks on supporters of the ousted president. On Wednesday, flights were held up at Bangui's airport as residents fled fighting and looting in a loyalist neighborhood. Well, journalist Crispin Emmanuel Demba Saketi is in the city and he joins us now. Crispin, what's the latest?
We can call it Occupy airports. In fact, some people, they are around 5,000, they are living around the airports, and they are afraid about some action of Seleka troops, and they leave their home to join airports since last night. When the interior minister went to speak to them and encourage them to go back, they say no, they will stay in the same place until that the government will find a solution to them. In the afternoon, the minister said that in the future, Seleka never will do the job of police. They will keep away from neighborhood and police will take over. We can say that also the last week, Seleka went in some districts in Bangui, and after the operation, some people were died. So the situation here is not quite to this moment. People still stay in Bangui.
Thank you very much, Crispin Emmanuel Dembesaketi there, getting us up to date with ongoing strife in Bangui. Look at some other news now. Togo's Prime Minister and his government have resigned their post as President Faure Gnassingbé prepares to name a new cabinet. Last month, parliamentary polls delivered Gnassingbé's ruling UNIR party a two-thirds majority, boosting his family's decades-long grip on power. Some disappointed Liberian students have been given a reprieve after a state-run university said it will admit 1,600 candidates for the new term, even though not a single one of 25,000 applicants passed the entrance exam. President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf met with the university after the dismal results were announced. She says that the poor performance is proof that the education system is still a mess 10 years after the end of a bloody civil war. Sirleaf's called on the country to see the dire states of schools as a national emergency. Zimbabwe has big plans to make itself a top tourist destination. It's co-hosting a huge UN tourism meeting alongside Zambia, a decision that was met with skepticism by some after President Robert Mugabe's re-election last month in disputed polls. But delegates did stay away from politics as they met at the spectacular Victoria Falls on the border between the two countries. Both showed off the heritage and wildlife they hope will tempt more visitors from growing economies like China. Zimbabwe pulled out its ace up its sleeve, though, announcing ambitious plans to build a huge Disneyland-style resort at the site. Now, as economies across the continent continue growing, so does the amount of waste they generate. Cameroon's decided it's time to head off an inevitable environmental backlash. It's trying to set up a waste management and recycling system for the tons of plastic produced or imported every year.
A rare sight in Cameroon. At this industrial estate outside the capital Douala stands one of the country's only waste recycling plant. Most of it is plastic, bottles, cups, bags, which are sorted, weighed and stored here.
Plastic is a non-biodegradable material. It's a huge waste because it has a lifespan of over 400 years. And also, it's produced in enormous quantities. And it represents an environmental problem.
Recycling here involves turning this plastic waste into brand new toilets, for instance. The company's owner says the sector is booming.
Recycling plastic could create thousands of jobs, and transforming it would mean thousands more.
The government aims at improving waste management in Cameroon. In about 6 months, production and distribution of non-biodegradable plastic will be banned altogether. But the sector needs regulating.
All we want is more supervision. The ministry should have its own lab to prevent crooks from labelling just any old thing as biodegradable plastic.
Plastic amounts for a third of the waste generated in Cameroon. Officially, this represents 200,000 tonnes each year, but many believe this figure is actually much higher.
That wraps up African news from me, but I will be back with more tomorrow, Laura.
Great stuff. Thank you very much indeed, Georgia Calvin-Smith there. Well, time for a short break here on France 24. When we come back, we'll bring you the very latest on Syria. Germany now says that the Syrian regime should not go unpunished for using chemical weapons. The regime, of course, continues to deny that it did. We'll have that. Plus, in sports, we'll be looking at the Champions League playoffs, including the best of Tuesday night's action. Dan Levy's here with that. Stay with us.